Okay, so basically the apartment above me had a fire. Someone put their stuff on a stove and it went up in flames, triggered the sprinkler, and it flooded 16 apartments.
It was 1,000 gallons of water.
Yeah, in 5 minutes. So none of our stuff is ruined, but the walls are essentially filled with water, and so they have to have these like industrial fans pointed at each wall to cool.
No, guys, like you don't understand. Their apartment is insane. Like you actually can't step foot in it.
You can't. It's like the initial sound of when an airplane first starts, but it never takes off. Like, and then there's just like air blowing everywhere. It's like hot air in your face. Like it's disgusting.
It's like a free sauna.
So yeah, we are demanding $500 a night until it gets fixed. But
well, you're not demanding. I feel like that's what you deserve.
Oh yeah, that's what's in our lease contract.
Yeah.
Which we still haven't gotten the money. So
Maya ChatGPT'd that.
Yeah, and the like landlord was like shocked. He was like, "There's no clause that says that," and I was like, "There is," and they showed him the clause. So literally 10 minutes before the meeting, we like upload our lease contract because our lease contract's like 98 pages long.
Yeah.
The Brady one's like super long. We upload it and we're like, come up with the best argument, and then we just like presented that argument. So
being a lawyer these days must be awesome.
I was gonna say GPT just made me $11,000, so it's like worth a $20 subscription every month.
That's crazy
or something. That was like my TikTok clickbait
That
idea.
is good.
Yeah. Cool. Should we get into it?
Yeah.
Okay. Welcome back to Get the Check. I'm Maya.
I'm Annika.
I'm Priya.
And this episode is going to be a fun one. Today we're talking about how Anthropic reached a settlement with the Authors Guild, specifically because they illegally trained their LLMs off of pirated copies. And then next we're going to be going into the browser wars, or just updates in the browser wars. One is that Google does not need to sell Chrome. Judge Mehta just ruled that a week ago. Atlassian is also buying the browser company for $610 million. And finally, Exa AI, which is the search engine for AI, just raised $85 million at a $700 million valuation led by Benchmark.
So starting with Anthropic is paying $1.5 billion to settle a copyright infringement lawsuit that they illegally trained their LLMs off of pirated copies for books. And the TLDR of what was decided is that it's illegal for Claude to be trained on these pirated versions of these books, but in situations where Anthropic has illegally acquired the material and then trained their chatbot on the book, that's actually fine because it's considered transformative. And we'll go more into the details of how copyright law works and the timeline of this case.
Yeah, so it started back in August of 2024. So honestly, for what we see with like class action lawsuits, it happened all pretty quickly, but there were a few authors, 3 in particular, that filed this class action lawsuit in California. And the interesting thing about these pirated copies is that they're all coming from like third-party sources. So they were using these other sources called LibGen. And then Pirate Mirror, like Pirate Library Mirror, which it literally has the name pirate like in it, so that's not a great look. But they were basically using these sources and just collecting as much data as they could to train their LLM. And then the case happened in between like June, July of this year, which is when it became like a class action lawsuit, which means not only the authors that initially brought up the case, but anyone that like is affected by the case can basically be involved as well. Have you guys done class action lawsuits?
Yeah, it's like there's a class action lawsuit against Flow. There's like
I know, but have you guys like gotten money for it?
No, once, like $20.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I've never done it because it's always like $5, and I'm like,
no, it's never like not worth it.
Yeah.
And then this month, like literally last week, Anthropic settled the case and agreed to pay $1.5 billion, which is roughly $3,000 per book. So
And
they're actually getting money.
And them settling it makes sense because they could have been responsible for up to $150K per book, which is pretty insane. And like if you do the math on 150K times 7 million, it's like extremely high. And this isn't negligible money to Anthropic. Like they just raised their Series F for $13 billion at $183 billion valuation. And so if you think about their last funding round being $13 billion and this payout being $1.5 billion, basically like venture capital is just like paying a $1.5 billion fee for.
Yeah. I think the other part of it is that like training costs for Claude and a lot of the leading models sit around $100 to $200 million, which is a ton of money. And so when you're saying that the data that they trained on is now worth $1.5 billion, which is now the next floor price for like the rest of these lawsuits that are about to occur, then you're starting to put a price on data and you're realizing, making these LLMs have now just exploded another 5x in cost.
Yeah.
Yeah, like if you think about even like profitability or anything like that.
Yeah, which I was like surprised that the markets didn't really like react to this lawsuit, because if you think about it, it's like another ding against these like big AI labs on reaching profitability anytime soon. Now the actual data underneath is very expensive.
Because I also think it specifically was the pirated versions, and they did say that all the other books that were trained on were fair use, and so it more will become the cost of like whatever the licensing fee is, or whatever it is to obtain those materials legally. So it probably is somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. And for why Anthropic never went the like legal route, or any of these AI labs in general have never gone the legal route, is because there is no licensing platform that aggregates all of this together like the Music Collective. It's very hard to obtain rights to any book. You have to go like to each individual author or each individual publisher to then get the license to like train on their books, which is like so hairy. Like they definitely knew what they were doing, and they knew that they had to pay a price. The biggest like thing that came out of this is how high that price was in the end.
Yeah. And it might be even higher because like basically now that the settlement was reached, any other author that was affected can still like come in and be like, oh, you also used mine, which if you know you're going to get paid out $3,000, I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of other people that come
for sure
and claim it.
Yeah. And there are basically two main arguments that played out in this case. The first was if they had authorized use. And I see that as pretty simple because it was pirated. They did not have authorized use, versus in other cases where they trained on things that they had authorized use to, like books that they bought, which they have done. That's fine. And then there's another set of arguments around the idea of fair use. And that one, I would see Anthropic as pretty much winning. So the idea of fair use is if you are buying a copyrighted work and you want to use it in something you're creating, there's like a few different ways you can do that that's allowed. And so that's like if it's something creative, if it's for a nonprofit, if it's not a large amount of the work, and if it's transformative. And so it mainly played out on the if it's transformative portion of that list. And they found that because AI is obviously like transformed our world, that their use of copyrighted books that they legally obtained is fine. And then like some of the other things played a smaller part in it, where it's like, okay, like they're not completely replicating these works in answers. It's more like pulling from them.
And I think the transformative use was decided back in June, but it was a big win for a lot of the AI labs, because many of the lawsuits rest on what you said, which were the two things of like, did you fairly acquire it, and can we be training on all this data, like, or do you have to like explicitly give consent to this training? Is it transformative use? So I think the fact that that question is answered actually clears a lot of like it does a lot of the groundwork for the rest of these cases that have been in, I think there's like limbo for the last 5 years since like like the day GPT was released was like the day all these cases started, like all these cases started essentially.
And that part is interesting because it's not, the precedent right now is that just because something is AI does not mean it's transformative. And like, we'll get into that in a case later, but it's interesting because it wasn't like a given that Anthropic would win that argument. And so it was kind of like breaking the mold.
I mean, we can just get into that case. So Reuters versus Ross Intelligence started back in 2000. The idea was that Thomson Reuters had like obviously they have a bunch of their articles, and Ross Intelligence used it, and the AI was not generative, so it didn't create new context. It was essentially like an AI search tool, and then it would give out summaries that were like direct snippets from the actual article. So like you could say, okay, like this is actually taken from the article, and as a result, and because this like it was AI search, but it wasn't AI like generative content, then that wasn't fair use at that point.
They did this in 2020, and then literally in 2021 they had to shut down because they used all of their funding fighting this.
Oh wow.
And so it like basically, and this case is like still going on. Like it went on until this year so the company was completely dissolved. It literally doesn't exist anymore because you're also fighting Reuters, who's like huge. And so like you're gonna get into that situation. And so the case itself is literally the reason that they went bankrupt. And so it set like a really interesting precedent for other companies like a long time ago of like, you have to be super careful of what you're trading on, because it's super possible that you could just lose everything, but then still continue to be fighting this legal battle like 5 years later.
I was gonna say it makes sense, and it makes sense why Open Evidence went about it the way they did. Because if you think about it, like Anthropic and like OpenAI, they have huge like checks to just like back up whatever they're doing. But an Open Evidence player is like a lot smaller, and so if you're building like a smaller LLM and it's more specific for a domain, you want to go about it legally, which we talked about last week, which was that they always license any of the like medical journals that they're using and training, and they only started with like public, I think it was like public medical journals, or something like that, right?
And everything has to be like HIPAA compliant. I mean, like for them it's even worse, I feel like, because they're in the medical space.
But they seem to like,
it's basically licensing deals, which is like what the labs should have done. But also, who knows like how easy it is for them to get licenses to certain things.
So actually, I don't know if we want to get into this now, but I actually found that it was like very similar to how Spotify blew up back in the day. Because like Spotify also had this issue of like not being able to get licenses for different like music, music in general.
Like Taylor Swift.
And so
she wouldn't be on Spotify.
Right? And so
and artists felt like they weren't getting paid fairly.
Blah, blah, blah. And so what ended up being established was the MMA, which is not the fighting thing. It's the I don't even know what it stands for.
Let me guess. Music Association.
Music Modernization Act, which updated the U.S. music licensing system, making it more efficient and fair for the digital age or whatever. Basically, it created the MLC, which is the Mechanical Licensing Collective. It's this thing where you sign up for a license and you are listed on their website, and then it collects royalties on behalf of you, and then has relationships with Spotify and Apple. And so you have this like nonprofit organization being the license broker for you and like the platforms, and then the bigger artists will do their individual deals with their record labels, and those record labels will negotiate deals with like Spotify and Apple and stuff like that. So that still exists, but then for like the long tail of like scattered artists that don't have a lot of money to represent themselves, they use this. And this was established in 2018. It's working very well. And so what this
really recently.
It's recent, but it took many years to get there because Spotify just was like, okay, we're going to ask for forgiveness. And that's what all the Gen AI labs are doing here, where they're just like, we're going to ask for forgiveness. And what I see honestly coming out of it is like some sort of licensing collective or some sort of act in the next 5 years to make this process efficient. Because like the courts have ruled that AI is good. We want AI. Gen AI specifically is transformative. Now they'll probably pave a way for everyone to get there as well.
Yeah, and there's so many examples, even zooming out, of startups asking for forgiveness instead of permission. I feel like that's just generally what they do. Like Uber operated in cities where it was illegal. I'm pretty sure Airbnb did the same thing. Like
not Kalshi.
Not Kalshi. But like kind of like not when it was illegal, but it's like they had to just like
filed
launch
it with the
these
FTC and
things,
they were like,
and then and then they kept getting like shut down. And I feel like startups have to like reach critical mass while doing things they're not allowed to do, and then they kind of like, because they have the critical mass, get allowed to do it.
Well, because also if you're like truly innovating, then you're doing something
that
hasn't been done, and so there's no legal, like there are.
I think it's like once it starts hitting the point of being valuable, courts will figure out a way to let it come
exactly
through, which we'll talk about with the Google Chrome case. But
that's really what I was thinking.
And then the other case that people have been citing a lot in relation to this is the Google Books case with Google. And basically what was ruled in that is because they're only providing snippets of the books online, and they got deals through publishers, so they have like 40 million books as of 2019 through publishers, that it was fine.
Yeah, the other part about that is like whether something is a substitute to a product or not. And so like, for example, if instead of going to a journal, you're going to like ChatGPT, that would be considered, I mean, there's like debates on whether it's considered a substitute or not, but it's basically like it could be viewed as a substitute for that. And what Google Books ruled was that they weren't trying to be a substitute. They were trying to make books searchable. And so that was like their key factor in that case that they were able to win on, was that like it's not a market substitution. It's like a net new tool for people to use. And actually, if anything, it helps them because it makes their books easier to find.
That's literally what open evidence is doing for medical journals too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is like very similar to
Yeah.
that.
Do you think that Google has an advantage because they already have like all of these books scanned and uploaded?
In training a model.
Yeah.
Did they like legally acquire all
Yeah.
that? Oh.
Well, that was the whole Google Books case.
Oh.
Because like I was reading someone say something where they were like, theoretically, like books have so much knowledge because it's like written by experts. It's like way more fact verified than the web. And theoretically, you'd want to weight it higher, right? In contrast to other training data that's lower quality. And so Google could have a pretty big advantage if they just have millions of books that they already have access to.
But not really, because like LibGen has like pretty much everything, or like a large chunk of whatever's out there. It's hard to estimate.
Okay.
And so at this point, like Anthropic,
They already did it.
yeah, they already did it, and like nothing in the case requires them to take it out.
It actually does, right?
Like they're not
yeah, like they have
required.
to delete the data.
Oh.
Like whatever, if they're getting it from like LibGen and they stored it on their servers or something, like you have to delete it there.
I guess like how would you even take out
Yeah,
a
exactly.
model? Like, I
You
don't know.
can't.
you
You
can't.
can't. You just have to like. You literally have to just kill the Claude Opus 4 model.
No, I
which-
was gonna say you'd have to literally start from scratch.
yeah, all the developers will start crying.
Oh my
Yeah.
god, would you cry?
No.
I think I would. Yeah.
I know you wouldn't.
Oh, I thought you would cry.
Would you not?
No.
Wait, what? That's like a big deal.
No, it's a big. I agree, it's a big.
It's a
deal.
big deal. I don't think I'd cry, but I feel like I'd just like use a different model.
No, I was just thinking about how like if
Like if all of AI
yeah,
disappeared.
yeah, I might even quit the pod if all Gen A models like just disappeared. I don't think I could research. Like
It would be.
it would be
It would be
impossible.
hard.
Yeah.
It would be hard.
Yeah, a couple other cases that we wanted to like cite or just talk about a little bit was the Getty Images versus Stability AI. This is similar where Stability AI is using Getty Images to like train their stable diffusion models. This has not been settled, but what this case from Anthropic shows maybe Stability AI is that there's likely going to be a settlement reached. And similarly with the New York Times versus OpenAI case, all the same thing.
They basically scraped the New York Times articles, which are copyrighted, so they needed a license.
Yeah.
Allegedly, but it is like pretty clear because basically OpenAI tells the New York Times that they use like deceptive methods of figuring out that they scraped their articles and like hack the chatbot. But the hacking involved with the chatbot was just like getting like prompting it very specifically so that it would respond with snippets. Because like, you know how earlier we were talking about how chatbots don't respond with snippets?
Yeah.
But you can like very specifically prompt it to respond with snippets, which is what the New York Times did, which makes sense because they needed to prove that their articles were scraped, which they already knew and we all know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But basically, like, I didn't think that OpenAI's argument is like very good.
Well,
to
none
say
of
that
their
they
arguments are good.
Yeah.
There also, theirs was the one where they were saying the outputs aren't substitutes for journalism. So,
Yeah.
like, OpenAI is arguing that, but then the New York Times is like, well, people are just going to go to you instead of us. So it is actually being a substitute.
Yeah. I would think the New York Times will win because
On the fair use one too? Or just on the like acquiring?
just on the acquiring.
Like-
Like, shouldn't they have needed a deal? I think OpenAI will win the fair use.
Yeah.
And New York Times will win that they didn't legally obtain it.
Yeah, I think it'll follow suit with what happened
Yeah,
with the
yeah.
Anthropic
So it's
case.
basically just the same
Yeah.
thing. But this case also cracks me up because anytime the New York Times talks about AI, they obviously bring up OpenAI, and then they have to bring up the fact that they're suing OpenAI. So like anytime you listen to their stuff, they're always like, yeah, and like now onto the AI race. Like disclaimer, we are suing OpenAI. And it just like cracks me up. But I feel like even with the secure biology case where there was an employee at OpenAI that unfortunately died and like the details of the death are like alleged and not clear. Like one of the things he was talking about was how they obtained data.
The other part of the Getty case that cracks me up is like, you know how they have like Getty Images watermark?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like literally on all of the models, like the images they were generating
had it.
the watermarks.
So the
on
watermark
them.
worked.
And and
The
so
watermark
like, there would be
stayed.
like parts of the watermark like literally in
Yeah.
the images generated, and they were like, you literally can't even like argue this. Like this isn't even like a fair fight at all.
That's
is so
funny.
funny.
That's
really
funny.
funny.
When your
It's really
AI
funny.
tells on you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so moving forward, this sets a precedent for all the other cases that are being litigated right now. And I would say this is still very much in the courts. Like, this one decision is probably going to be cited, but it's not considered to be like the end all be all. And so other judges could decide other ways, and then there'll be some type of conclusion, which is like these AI labs either need licensing agreements or they need to be paying for these subscriptions, which that wouldn't really matter, but a licensing deal might be something more expensive. It hopefully will end up working out to an equilibrium the same way licensing music with Spotify did, where everyone mostly feels like they
are like
have
fairly
a piece of the pie.
compensated. Yeah. But this definitely was like a huge win for the authors, because I mean, you're going up against these AI labs that are huge names, and like that is scary.
Cool. Well, that wraps up our segment on the copyright lawsuit.
Yeah, moving on to the browser wars. So we covered the browser wars not that long ago, and things have continued to heat up. So we can start with the Google case, because this was huge. Okay, it was funny because I was listening to the New York Times coverage of it, and it was basically saying like it's a slap on the wrist, which like I agree with. It was basically trying to say the case was so favorable that Google's stock price actually shot up 9%.
Because everyone thought it was gonna like,
and I was like,
crash
the way
the
they said
market.
it was so dumb. I was like, yeah, it shot up because people had already priced in like a negative.
They were gonna like get rid of crime,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah,
Like
no,
sometimes when the New York Times or stuff like talks about the stock market or tech versus like when like All In talks about politics, I'm like, you guys like seriously should not talk about the other thing. Like, what are you saying?
Yeah, I think the New York Times was commenting on the fact that like they thought that the market was going to go into free fall if like the case was decided that they would have to break up.
Which is I'm sure the stock would have gone down.
Yeah.
But it's like there's some amount of the case priced in.
Yeah.
But anyways, this was the biggest antitrust case in decades, so a lot of people were watching it. And I would say another reason a lot of people were watching it is because Lena Khan, who used to be the FTC chair, pioneered this idea of, there's actually a name for it, I can't remember. It's like hippie something.
Oh, I don't know what the name is, but the idea that like consumers are not just paying in price but paying for their privacy.
Yeah, exactly. The case initially seemed like it would be decided in line with that because the judge ruled in
2024.
Yeah.
It was August 2024.
Yeah.
That it was, they basically said that Google did have an illegal monopoly in search.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think like I think there was two things. One was like, okay, do they have a monopoly? And then two, what are the repercussions?
Yeah.
The New York Times said this as well in their podcast. But when you're thinking about the repercussions, what people didn't realize is the judge decided to factor in the future, what he believes the future of the world is, into the repercussions for Google Chrome, and cites the fact that AI has changed the landscape since the case has started, and the need for Google divesting Chrome is not there anymore because we're seeing a lot of new players pop up around search, specifically OpenAI with their chatbot, being able to compete for the market share that Google has.
Yeah, exactly. And so the specific ruling basically said previously that Google does have a monopoly. That's pretty clear. They have like 94% of the search market. But then the specific ruling this time said that they can still pay Apple their like $20 billion a year that they've been paying them in order to have Google search be the default. But now it's a non-exclusive default. So they can see other people. I was trying to figure out how that would work. Like, would it be like, oh, they also have a deal with Perplexity and it's like you click on like Google or Perplexity?
So actually, the court did not mandate a choice selector. So this is really interesting because even though it's going to be a non-exclusive deal, Google could pay Apple enough money to be like, you can't put a choice selector and you have to explicitly opt in to a different browser or a different search engine, rather than like when you set up the phone, you get to choose what you want.
So basically nothing's different. There's still loopholes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, I don't really understand this because if Google is paying Apple $20 billion a year and then it's technically non-exclusive, but if Apple goes and uses another provider as well, Google will just be like, so we're not going to pay you the $20 billion.
Maybe, but it also would probably be beneficial for them to still get that usage.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I'm sure there's going to be contract renegotiations and all of that as a result of this, like for that exact
like
reason.
You can effectively negotiate out the same deal, which both of them, okay, it's like there was a deal, right? It's still legal. Both of these parties want this deal. That was clear from the entire case. So like nothing needs to change.
Nothing needs to change.
Yeah. Like I don't really think that it like super matters.
Yeah.
But we'll see how it plays
I think
out.
it's more just like, let's say there was a competitor that was so good, they could get in on it too. And maybe that doesn't exist right now, but it creates market incentive for someone to go build that because they're not just like automatically boxed out of the equation.
Yeah. And then there's the right to data portion where now Google has to share part of its search index and user data with different competitors and their commercial teams.
Yeah. So the search index is a database where search engines store information about the discovered web pages. So like if you're like the only way you can get to an article is if something's in the search index, but they don't have to share their power ranking.
Yeah.
And I think this is where the judge is really saying like, yeah, you can get access to all this data, but you don't get to get the secret sauce of why Google bubbles up something over the other, which I think like makes sense. It's like, okay, yeah, build your own search algorithm. And if it's that much better, consumers will use it.
Yeah. It's like Google doesn't have to open source all their technology.
Yeah.
And then they can keep Chrome and they can keep Android, which is big.
Yeah. The DOJ was basically looking for structural remedies to what they could do to basically break up this monopoly that was ruled on. This time when the judge ruled, they were basically like, yeah, you don't need to put any of that in place. You just have to adhere to these rules that we just laid out.
Yeah. And it was interesting because big picture, the judge talked about how Google is in a lot of ways upholding like the entire, not unilaterally, but it's like upholding an entire ecosystem of tech, right? Like they're sending, sorry, there's a fly. They're sending Apple $20 billion a year. They also have like all these different relationships with developers. And so imposing something like this would have a ripple effect. But ironically, I think that's kind of the point the government was trying to make, which is like they've become so big that you can't even think about breaking them up because it would have like all of these negative effects on every other player.
The other thing I will say that is the New York Times also called out is that so this case follows like very closely in line with what happened with Microsoft 20 years prior, where they also had a monopoly on, what is it, like consumer devices and the browser.
Installing their like OS and whatever, like the equivalent of their OS is like on
computer devices. And the biggest thing that came out of that was even though they weren't also broken up, they were really scared to like continue innovating in that area. And so because they were scared, they were less aggressive in the market. And in the end, like other players entered.
Clearly.
And so then the question is like, is this a big enough slap on the wrist for Google to like let the market become more competitive? Does it instill enough fear, and is the punishment big enough?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I don't think so. I also think it's a future looking thing. Like when Lena Khan was FTC chair and Biden was the president, there was a completely different business environment. And this case has played out more and more in Google's favor over time. And everyone in the tech world has kind of said that they agreed with the ruling. And they're all like also friends with Trump. And I just don't think that in the current business environment, Google would need to be afraid of another case like this.
I also think they probably, with like how the technology landscape looks today, I don't think they can back down because technology progress has only like exponentially increased over time. And right now we're seeing probably like the most technological advancements we've ever seen. And so I don't think there's any room for them to back down.
I will say the only player that I think could create a browser to compete with Google search is OpenAI. I don't think Perplexity has a real shot at being like the default browser. The browser company, which we'll get into, already got sold to Atlassian. So it's really just between the two of them. Like, who else is there?
It is interesting, though, because I feel like enterprise search can definitely be won by someone else.
Yeah, we can get into that because I feel like that's like the browser company's whole argument if we want to talk about
and like,
it.
But I'm saying like I do agree with that because like we at like work we stopped using Chrome and we all switched to Island because it's like more secure and it's like required basically, like it's not an option because it's like the most secure browser. And so from like that perspective, if your company can like mandate what browsers you're using and then someone does get a foothold into like the entire enterprise space and it connects to your applications, which like we can get into in the next conversation, I do think there's a world in which like they do lose a lot of business by not having enterprise on them anymore.
That makes sense, actually. I didn't even think about that angle.
Yeah, that does make sense. Although I feel like you work at a cybersecurity company and it's probably like not a good indicator of the market.
That's true. But I was looking at like the Forbes Cloud 100 list recently. And like when I heard of Island for the first time, I was like, I have never heard of this. Like, why are we using this? And it turns out their revenue is like so high.
Oh, really?
And their valuation is so high. And I was like, oh, this is like a big company. And I didn't even realize it because I'm not 'cause
'cause
tapped
you don't
into
use
like
it,
yeah.
We can go into Atlassian buying the browser company for $610 million pure cash.
Must be nice.
Expected to close next year in the second quarter.
Wait, there was a huge crash out on Twitter. Did you
Really?
see? Yeah, because like everyone is like Atlassian is where all these products go to die. Because Atlassian is like bad at like making
sense.
good products and like the experience is really shit. It's just that like they just have all these crazy contracts with all the big SaaS
They're
companies.
kind of like legacy company at this point.
That's what I felt too.
Yeah.
Because like it's like Jira versus Linear, right?
They do have 80% of the Fortune 500, which is like an insane stat.
That also
Yeah.
just makes you a legacy company.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it also means that you have customers. Like you're not going
Yeah, no,
anywhere.
like
Yeah.
they have revenue, which is not something the browser company had. Like the browser company, wait, did you guys check the revenue number?
It wasn't at 0?
I think it was, okay, the number I saw was 22 million.
Oh, okay.
I don't think it was 0, but people were calling it 0. Yeah, but I don't think it was actually 0. Yeah, but it is funny timing with like Google just winning their case because the browser company's entire historical ethos was Google hasn't changed in decades, and their product launch videos would always have like Google over the years, and it's like it really hasn't, Google search, like it hasn't changed much. So they create this new browser, it's called Arc, and there were like a lot of people in the tech community that adopted it and really loved it. One of them was actually the CEO of Atlassian, and apparently he used to like always recommend new product features, and he was like a huge power user.
Wait, that's cute.
Yeah.
That is really cute.
It honestly makes the deal make sense.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, you just had a soft spot. But I think, and like we covered this before, like it just seemed like the learning curve was too high. And there's an idea of like the amount of benefit something gives you versus like the amount of pain it causes you. And it's like people are mostly fine with Google search. Like they don't feel like it's an issue.
Well, this is my really big issue with not using Chrome is that like there are like Google Docs or like quick links that I'm like always going back to, and like the search is so good because I know I can type like XYZ and it opens specifically my work Google Doc. So it's like kind of like Go links, except like you don't have to set them up.
But I feel like any browser learns that because now it's so funny because like they made us transition from Chrome to Island, and now I can't use Chrome because it doesn't have that. Because like everything is on Island, and I'll type in like one letter and it'll know exactly what I want to see. So I think that's like adaptable to like any browser.
Agreed. I'm not saying Chrome is anything net new. I'm just saying that like
moving
off of
it's annoying.
Moving off of your browser is the most annoying thing.
It is.
Like setting up a new laptop is part of that. Is part of that. But then when you sign into your like Chrome browser, you're like, it's all there. Like it's fine.
It's all saved.
Yeah. And so basically the browser company was like, for the reasons Maya said, people are not moving on to Arc. And so they were like, okay, but then AI came to be, and they were like, we'll create Dia and it'll be an AI browser. And I think the idea with that was the benefit that Dia gives you goes up from what Arc was giving you, which should be enough to get mass consumer adoption, or so they thought. And so you can like chat with multiple tabs, and there's a lot of like typical AI features similar to what like Perplexity is trying to do with their browser. It still did not get mass consumer adoption, and now you have OpenAI going into the race, Perplexity going into the race, Google,
Claude, or Anthropic.
Anthropic.
And so I feel like the browser company's like falling out of even like the top 5 list, and that's like a really tough position to be in. And
without a big paycheck,
a winner takes all market,
or like especially without a big like funding round to like boost you up or like spend all the money you can.
And so they were focusing on like consumer experiences, which is the same thing that like OpenAI is working on, which makes it nearly impossible because they're basically also want to be your shopping assistant and making reservations for you and doing all of those things. And so I do think that it makes sense for them to pivot and like join Atlassian because that makes them a work productivity tool, which is positioning yourself very differently than making reservations and flights.
And if you're not familiar with Atlassian, they do like Jira, like engineering tickets. Confluence is note taking. Trello is like kind of like to-do list / project management.
We used to use Trello in college. You remember? It was so funny. Our consulting club used to use Trello to evaluate people, and so it would literally be like everyone's picture and their name, and you would like drag the people across to the different columns.
Oh wow,
it was so funny.
Honestly, our college consulting club's recruiting process, I've never seen a more in-depth recruiting process.
Like
agreed ever. what would we used to do? Would you call the scoring?
The rubrics, like the grading?
Yeah, but like when it scores relative, it's like
Z-score. We use Z-scores.
Z-score? Yeah.
Sometimes it's crazy how like like certain college processes in like very established clubs are like insanely like advanced.
Yeah.
They're better than normal recruiting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like actually.
It's actually so much of a delta that I can't even start to explain it. 'Cause it's not even like I'm not talking about a specific company, just like in general, most companies are not even having interviewers score the interviewees, forget about then Z-scoring those scores.
Yeah.
Like they're like
Against each
2
other.
steps behind.
Yeah.
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 Anyway, sorry, that was a tangent.
That was a tangent. But yeah, Atlassian basically is like the work productivity.
Yeah. And it's so funny in the announcement, the Atlassian CEO was like, don't worry, like the browser company is like still its own entity. And I think it was just to like tell people like we're not going to like kill their product. We're just going to fund their paychecks and like let them build.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they are going to kill Arc and so
Okay, yeah,
but they are going to kill some of their product.
They said they're not, but I'm sure they will.
Yeah. I mean, from all the announcements, it seems like they are going to kill Arc, and they're basically just going to put all the money into expanding Dia and figuring out how they can basically integrate it into enterprise, like individual users at enterprises.
Yeah.
Which honestly would be helpful. Like as someone that uses like the entire Atlassian suite, it would be really helpful to be able to connect everything together.
Right now, the biggest problem with like AI agents in terms of fixing your code is the fact that like your Datadog log does not connect to your like linear ticket, which doesn't connect to your like Slack.
Yeah.
And so one of my friends from Paraffin like left and started a company where it does all those connections for you and like creates an agent to do that. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking like, in Atlassian suite, that's probably what Dia is going to be used for, is to connect all of those things together to then actually make a way better insight into like providing a solution.
Yeah. Yeah. Something that was interesting was I think it was the Dia CEO or it was someone that worked there was basically like, he said, I think the winner of the AI browser space is going to be crowned in the next 12 to 24 months. And he basically was like,
whoa.
Yeah.
That's a quick timeline.
Yeah. That's what he said. And he basically said that he doesn't think that they could make it without distribution, like mass distribution. And the only way to achieve that was by like going to Atlassian. And that was like his quote.
And that he just got a huge fucking paycheck.
Yeah.
Yeah, also like it's a huge product pivot. It's not like they're making the same product.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All their use cases for a consumer browser too were like the specific use cases that people already use ChatGPT for. It's not even the use cases people use Google search for, if that makes sense. Like, I'm traveling, like where should I go? Like those types of questions.
Yeah.
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 It was funny. Actually, this is not worth talking about. No,
I want to hear what's funny.
Oh, as soon as this like news drop, I like texted Audie and I was like, you guys missed out on this deal. And he was like, we can't compete with the New York shops right now.
That's so funny. Wait, Audie and BK were being so sus in their conversation at your birthday. Like basically I walked over to them and they were just like in a conversation. I was literally just going to go join their conversation and I heard them say like one of Abnormal's competitors' names and I was like, oh, that's like so random. Like, why are you guys talking about it? And BK just looked at me and was like, I can't tell you. And I was like, what? Like I was like, what's going on?
Okay,
and
I'll get the tea for you.
And he was like, I can't tell you, Priya, I can't tell you. He was like, you were on the market map though. And I was like, I'm sure we were.
No, it's so
I hope so.
I hope so. It's so funny.
Yeah.
It's really funny when you talk to like VCs about the area your startup is in.
Yeah.
Because like they put a lot of emphasis, I feel like, on competitors. Like they're always like, what do you think of this like player? Like, what do you think of that player? Like, I don't have anything to say.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you have more to say about it than I have to say about it. But yeah, the last thing I wanted to talk about is if you guys think the acquisition makes sense for Atlassian, because I feel like I haven't heard anyone with the take that the browser company shouldn't have done it. But I personally don't know that if I was Atlassian, I would have bought this company.
So actually I was thinking about this because like you evaluate M&A acquisitions on a 10-year timeline. So you're basically saying Atlassian like generates you $60 million a year in enterprise value. I don't know, that's like it's like it could go either way. I mean, it's just a bet at the end of the day.
I also think they do need to get into the AI space more than they are right now.
Yeah.
Because like they really don't do much. Like right now it's like on a Jira ticket, you can have it be summarized, which is like what people were doing years ago at this point now.
Yeah.
And so I do think that they need some big move into AI. And if this is like their choice of what they think can take them there, then I think that's like a fine bet to make.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll work out.
Why don't you think it'll work?
I just don't see like a future where like the typical company, the browser you're using is
An Atlassian
browser.
Oh, I don't think it'll work out either. I just think Atlassian's too old to come back.
Yeah, I could also see that. I don't also really see the brand synergy. Like, I feel like, and I get how that's the point. Like, maybe Atlassian needs the benefit of the browser company having taste and stuff. But I just feel like the
Atlassian.
the browser company's entire ethos just feels like so contrary to Atlassian.
Yeah.
Well, that's why the crash out was like big on Twitter.
No, yeah, it is like sad. Anyways.
Another one bites the dust.
Yeah. On to our last segment of the day. We are going to talk about if Exa would get our check. They just raised a Series B for $85 million at a $700 million valuation.
Not only get our check, I would work there.
Wait, when I was researching it, I was like, this
It's
company
sick.
is so cool.
Yeah.
I never heard of it.
No, I had
actually.
never heard of it either.
I had heard of it because they're on the billboards in SF.
Oh.
They're always like your world, like your AI's search engine or something. Like they just have like
Oh my God.
you've seen them. They're right next to our apartment too. Yeah.
Wait, okay, we can beep this out, but was like, what do you think of that company? And I was like, oh, I honestly like I've never heard of them.
Wait,
But yeah.
it's so awkward when people ask you about like tech things because it's like obviously we know, but we don't know like every single thing.
Yeah.
Like literally when I was getting dinner with my friend and then Navon was like sitting next to us or whatever, and I was like, I don't know who that is, and he was like, how's that even possible?
It's like,
Shoot me that I don't know every single person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I also feel like our knowledge is like way more recent. Like is like way
Well,
more
for sure,
in
for
depth
sure.
for the last year.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Anyway. So Exa was founded in 2021, and them, like every other company, thought that they could build a better search engine than Google. And so back then in 2021, their goal was basically to give users control of the web in a way Google didn't. And so the example they always give is like, give me ML engineers in New York that have a blog and sort by experience. And those are the type of things that when you search into Google, you like wouldn't be able to find. And then they were basically like, when they launched their product in 2022, and that was at the same time that ChatGPT became big, they got all these requests for like API search access. And they were like, oh, this is a huge space that we could win in, is basically doing search for AI. And so that's what they say their like story was. Maybe that's like the fun version of their story.
Yeah, the founder was like, yeah, my roommate requested it. This VC in Switzerland requested it. Or maybe it was Germany. And then he was like, and then all of a sudden it just came to me. And it's so funny because like I was trying to like research them, and he says the exact same story every podcast he's on. And I feel like I heard it like 5 times, and I was like,
You know,
okay.
that's actually better because there's this one health tech company that I won't name, and I've heard their founder give like 2 to 3 different stories about whatever illness he had that led to him founding this company. And like one time my friend was showing me like notes on it that he's like in VC, and then also I've like listened to the podcast, and like none of them align. Like they're different stories. So honestly, at least this guy has his story
At least he's
straight.
consistent.
I
Yeah.
respect it. Like I sometimes try to come up with a good story for why we started the podcast. So if you hear a story at any point, like just don't say that
I always just say Maya texted me.
I always just say we thought we were funny, realized we weren't, and then realized that we had to provide some knowledge value.
I always say Maya texted me, and all of college, me and Annika always wanted to have a
Yeah.
podcast on our crazy stories, but then we realized we had real jobs and couldn't do that. So Maya brought us back to Earth and was like, let's do a tech podcast.
No, and I said let's make it on girl things, which
It's not
it's not on girl things at
I feel
all.
like our social media is a little girly.
Yeah,
it
for
is.
sure.
Makes sense for girls. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, they realize that AI by 2028 is going to search the web more than humans do, and we can input the graph, but there's this graph basically of how human search is going up, but not highly exponential, versus AI search is going to become highly exponential. And this makes sense because also like when you ask an AI something, a lot of times it has multiple queries going at once, like multiple searches, and that's a big part of what they talk about from a technological perspective, where search for AI, a lot of things need to be different. First of all, like, you don't want to have ads because you want to give the highest quality answer. Speed is very important.
I don't even think ranking is that important. Like, just like
exactly. Be able to consume data,
like
Design
lots of data
isn't that important. Yeah.
And as we see like models start to have larger context windows, then Exa can give that much more data to them at once. And so like you don't need to like specifically rank. You can naturally see what the model pulls out.
Yeah. So it's like a combination of that stuff. And then the last thing that they always call out is zero data retention, which means that queries don't get stored in either the main service or in sub-processors. And this is important because a lot of browser companies are just wrappers of Google, which means that they are a sub-processor and like the data is getting stored somewhere at some point with Google. And over time, it's basically becoming more and more important that there is this like zero data retention. And to solve for that, you literally have to have your own search engine, which is like what they're doing. And apparently, I actually didn't even know this until I was looking into it, but apparently Bing deprecated their search API last month. And it was like a big deal because a lot of people were using the Bing search API. And so now they're getting a bunch of new customers, specifically large financial institutions and the Fortune 500, because like those were the people that were using Bing. And so they were like, now that we have this option of where we can go, we don't need to go to Google because there actually are these other places. And so I think it's like one of the first times in real time we're seeing it play out of they have the choice because of a forcing function of Bing getting deprecated. Because like, when does that happen? Like, that doesn't happen.
I didn't even know that.
And so now they like, I mean, this is all self-reported by AXA, but like they say that they're getting these customers and like it would make sense.
Yeah. That's actually really interesting.
Yeah.
There's like one conversation I wanted to have that, I don't know, I feel like you might have a perspective on this, but basically they linked this paper / like article in like their homepage, which basically talks about two different schools of thought when it comes to making breakthroughs in like AI or similar fields. And one school of thought is like, you use human knowledge to try to like hard code certain things. So like, for example, when they were trying to beat like the best chess player in the world with a computer, like a lot of people like worked on that problem to be like very specific in applying their like humans' knowledge on chess, right? And then there's another school of thought where they're like, we'll just brute force this, like give more and more data and like brute force it. And there's all these examples of trying to brute force with just like maximum, like just like increasing the amount of data. And those have historically worked out. And the first few times there was a group of scientists that was like, oh, this is just coincidence and like we got lucky. But they found that to be true over time. And Exa says that kind of like underpins their technological philosophy.
Yeah, actually, I know what you're talking about because I watched something similar with the Exa founder talking about it. But that LLMs, like in 2020, like Greg Brockman was like, oh yeah, like LLMs are going to be the future. Like we'll reach AGI or like a version of AGI by just scaling the amount of data and compute we put on this thing. And then this guy was like, no, you're not. And then they did, or like they got very close, at least as what we see right now. And so he was like, yeah, we can do something similar here. And they actually train. They spent like half of their like Series A money on like a GPU cluster, which is like kind of unheard of. And they trained their model tuned specifically to be able to pull data differently than like a normal search engine is. What people don't understand is like building a search engine is like a very technically hard challenge. And so they need, I don't know too much because they don't really talk about exactly what they're doing, obviously, because like that's their technical moat. But they have like a very large model that's different than LLMs. So LLMs like take all the data from the internet and then they compress it. And so like the things that come out is like when Biden is born, but not when like Maya is born. I think that's like the example that the founder gave. Versus like the model that they're training, like it needs to be very good at like edge data and not really provide weight to like specific types of data. It's like you almost don't want a ranking. You want to be more flavorless or less opinionated about the data that you're providing and just give all the data at once. And so they're trying to work on like, again, like their version of like brute forcing or whatever is like how much money can we spend on GPUs and building this like building one of like the largest models possible.
Yeah. And that's what they said they're using this money for, is
Yeah.
to 5x their GPU cluster.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it seems like as of right now, they have a product that's like a little bit competitive with what the browser company is trying to do at Atlassian, because they have a ton of customers like Cursor and Notion and stuff, and the employees are using it, I assume, right?
Yeah, I think so.
And so
Oh,
you
I
can
don't
like tag Exa, I'm pretty sure,
Oh, I didn't even know.
and
that.
ask questions.
Yeah. Well, because like originally before, it's the same like story where before AI was the big thing, they all like had these products that they were building anyway. And then it's like the transition of like, what is it going to become in our current world?
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
would get our check.
They would definitely get our check. I literally looked it up on LinkedIn and I looked at like every single person that worked there.
I'm surprised that there's not another. Maybe there is. Is there like a big competitor?
To EXA?
I don't
No.
know.
From what I understand, no.
Yeah.
I'm surprised more people are not trying to work on that, because I feel like it's a type of problem that like suddenly if you start having agents in like every app, like
Well, I think it's just people are just realizing that this is better than Google. Like, I don't think it was obvious that what EXA was doing is better than Google.
well, it's specifically because of AI, right? But I feel like it could have, yeah.
Or that it would be necessary.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Cool. Well, thanks for listening to us on this fine Tuesday morning. We will turn this episode around and get it out
We'll
to you
turn
tomorrow.
it around for you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, we said in our TikTok that Priya and I woke up to record at 7 a.m. after my surprise birthday party, but then upon actually waking up, no recording was done.
Yeah.
We've literally
it's
put off
become
this
a
recording.
pattern. Well, I just think it's because we have like Sunday afternoon, evening is the best time to record, but then there's always something going on.
It's because we've been going out.
Yeah. It's just the
Yeah.
summer. I think when we go back to the winter, we'll
I
stop
agree.
going out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is because we've been like going out. Yeah.
I also feel like we kind of know each other's schedule or the vibe of each other's schedule a
Yeah.
little bit more, that like we're more comfortable with like moving things.
Well, I feel like we've become really comfortable with morning recordings too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like I think it's also that because like we're confident in our editing ability to turn around an episode, which
That is-
we didn't used to be.
we used to not be. Yeah,
but
yeah,
like
yeah.
now we can totally do it in a
Yeah.
day.
Yeah, like recording on a
Don't get
Tuesday
close.
morning was like, oh, like
Scary.
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 And now we're like, yeah, we'll just do it.
Yeah. Anyway.
Okay.
Okay. Bye, guys.
Adios.